The new world of work is here, and with that, the need to redefine what we commonly understand as human resources and how we see ourselves fit in. Hello and welcome to Workplace Shift. I'm Nicolette, DeVidar. It's December 2020. No one recognizes the world of work anymore. Do you? The shift has already happened. Agile work concepts, more self-service and independence for employees, an increased integration of digital tools in daily routines, and being adaptive to a world in constant change is no longer optional. If our organizations want to survive, we all better get on with it. For years, there was a lot of talk about a need to approach humans in the workplace differently. Talk, that is. Now, COVID made that talk a reality for everyone. Some like it, some hate it, but it offers a lot of new opportunities to rethink how we work and how we all fit in. So what does that mean for people management? What does this mean for you and for employees? Is the classic HR function a thing of the past? Do we need a new understanding of human resources? Are you thinking about HR in a different way today than you did maybe 8 months ago? My guest today is the founder of Hacking HR, who set out to transform HR a while ago and make it fit for the demands of the 21st century. Future forward, that is. Welcome, Enrique Rubio. Welcome, Enrique, to Workplace Shift. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Nicolette, for inviting me to spend some time with you and your audience and share some of the ideas about the future of work, the future of HR, and all the fun stuff,
Exactly, all the fun stuff. Now, you founded Hacking HR. First of all, I found the name Hacking HR really super interesting. How did you come up with that?
Well, this is the thing. I come from technology. That is my first background, and then I switched to the world of human resources. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that when you talk about hacking in the world of technology, what you are talking about is changing things from the core, mm-hmm. changing things from the very basic lines of coding, if you will. And when I think about the world of HR, I think that there's a lot of work to be done to make it better, to change it, to update it, to make it more relevant to the times that we are living in, not only pandemic times, but all the other trends that are transforming the new reality of work. And I thought, well, if we have to change HR from the core, then basically what we're doing is hacking HR. And that's pretty much how the name came up.
That's awesome, because I found it really interesting that you mentioned hacking. So it's really like hacking is this major, well, to me, this seems like you really go in and hack something to really disrupt it.
That is absolutely right. Yeah. What we're trying to do, hacking is disrupting. There's another community, by the way, which is called Disrupt HR, and they are very good friends of mine. Yeah. And, we are in this ecosystem of participants trying to create a better HR. There are many participants, if you will. Disrupt HR is one community, Hacking HR is another community, and there are other communities out there trying to reimagine, transform, create a better HR function. But ultimately, I think what we're doing is that, we are trying to disrupt the world of HR, trying to recreate it, reimagine it, and do it better. Do it better.
Now, let me ask you, why do you think we need to disrupt HR?
Well, not only HR. The reality is that we need to disrupt a lot of things in the world, and it's just that the old ways don't work anymore. And this is true for many other areas. It is true for technology. It is true for sales. It is true for customer experience. Yes. It is true for marketing. But I think a lot of those functions have had a stronger incentive to change, a stronger incentive for disruption, a stronger incentive to be up to date with what's happening. Mm-hmm. If a company is not doing proper marketing, that company is not selling. If a company is not doing proper selling, well, the company is not getting money. If a company is not up to date with technology, it may be inefficient.
Yeah.
But that same thinking has not necessarily applied to the world of HR,
Why not?
meaning, well, because HR traditionally was seen as a compliance-based, a mitigator of risk, protecting the company and protecting the leaders of the company, and it was never seen as anything else other than a cost center. And I'm talking about historically, right? What's happened with HR. So the business leaders of a given company perhaps never saw the potential of HR to be just as another business unit, such as marketing, sales, technology, customer experience, and whatever it is. They always saw it as, well, this is a necessary evil that we need to have in our organization to ensure compliance, enforce the policies, and protect the company from liabilities, from whatever may happen with people. And that created, of course, a very negative incentive of HR saying, well, we don't take risk. We operate in the same way all the time. We just stay quiet in the background. And when something happens, we, reactively react to that something to protect the company, to protect the business leaders, to avoid liabilities, to mitigate risks. And historically, that has weakened the muscle of HR in terms of our capacity and our potential to truly deliver another level of value for the organization. So it's like, you know, if you want to go and exercise out today, and you have been sedentary for the past 20 years, the first day is going to be pretty hard on you. It's gonna hurt,
Yeah.
and you will try to go out to run 1 mile, and you will find yourself not even able to walk half a mile because your muscles are weak. Same thing happened with HR. Historically, business leaders, the way we were trained traditionally in HR, has have weakened the muscles of HR to achieve or reach that potential. And now we are told, you guys have to be disrupted, you guys have to change, you have to do things differently. So that means that we need to strengthen the muscles, and that's not going to happen overnight. That requires time, that requires training, workout, mindset change, and whatnot.
That sounds to me, though, Enrique, that it requires very different skills in the HR field than the skills people normally in the HR field used to have before. Because now you need to literally go from people who were used to not taking risks to becoming more risk takers, from people who didn't have necessarily the strategic line, so to speak, inside to become really strategic in how they do, in aligning business strategy with people strategy. So where do you see this talent to come from and be developed?
Well, you are absolutely right about that. Going back to my example of having weak or strong muscles, your business leader said to you for years, you sit in there, you don't make noise, you don't make a big deal out of the people operation. You just ensure that people are following the policies, the processes, the systems. You mitigate risk, and you protect us from people, from liabilities, people driven, if you will.
Yep.
So we were told that for a number of years. Now, those same business leaders, or the demands of the circumstances that we're going through, all of them are telling us, now you got to go and run 100 miles in 20 hours. So how are we going to do that, right? If we've been told to just sit, and now we're told to run. So the muscles are weak, and we need time to retrain and to strengthen those muscles. Part of that retraining and part of that strengthening process happens through the upskilling and the reskilling of ourselves in HR. And this is the way I put it all the time. What we do inside the HR bubble is not enough anymore to move the needle forward, to propel our organizations, to propel our business leaders, and to propel our own HR functions forward. We need to start looking and learning from outside of the traditional HR space. And what that means is that compliance, compensation, employment law, or relationships and recruitment, which are the more traditional areas in HR, those areas are not enough anymore. HR professionals need to know about data analytics, for example. They need to know about design thinking, about agility. They need to understand
Yes.
marketing, finance, sales cycles.
Yes.
They need to understand how the company operates. They need to understand all the metrics of success, all the P&L and the financial metrics of success of the organization. They need to understand not only the goals of the people that we're serving in the organization, but the implications of those goals in terms of the people strategy. And this requires us a complete set of different skills that we do not have within the bubble of HR. And let me just add one last comment.
Yeah,
To
because
me,
you really need a multidisciplinary approach, which means you really need someone who comes actively from the business field more than the classic HR.
Or you need to have people in HR who understand very well how the business operates. I think, one thing that I find value in is in the cross-pollination of ideas. And when I say cross-pollination of ideas, what I mean is I welcome the opportunity of having people who come from other areas, beyond HR to come to HR. I also welcome the opportunities for HR people to be pushed into doing something else that is not HR. But ultimately, what matters is how are we combining all of those pieces of knowledge, which could be considered verticals or silos of knowledge, how can we combine them into creating something much stronger than if we just looked at the business world from the business perspective or from the operation perspective or from the technology perspective or from the human resources perspective. So what I was going to say before actually was, very much aligned with this, which is, to me, the most successful HR leaders in the world will be the ones that are capable of connecting dots. And what that means is people who are going to be able to see, look at the business goals, look at the metrics of success for the finances of the company, look at the trends that are impacting our industry, look at the trends that are impacting our country or our region, and look at the trends of how people operate. So now let me connect all those dots to design processes, systems, strategies, practices, policies, whatever it is, to make sense of all this myriad of different things that impact the business, but they seem to be, pretty piecemeal. So the successful HR leader of the future will have to connect all of those dots. And being able to do so, once again, will require a different set of skills. But if we're able to do it well, we're going to be in a much better place than the place we are today.
Absolutely, but that's also the difference between the CPO role, the Chief People Officer role, versus the traditional HR director role or head of HR role. So the CPO has a much broader application and brings all those things together in the actual sense of what that role was developed. I mean, there's some organizations who just use it as a high-level HR director, but essentially it's a different role.
Well, the reality is, Nicolette, that at least in my view, I think the original idea of changing the title from Chief Human Resources Officer to Chief People Officer was, how can we get rid of the bad rap that the Chief Human Resources Officer title may have, and how can we create something different? But this is what I've seen in the real world. What I've seen is people with the title Chief Human Resources Officers doing incredible work, and people with the title Chief People Officer doing very crappy work. So to me, it goes way beyond the title. It's the actual work that you're doing.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. But it's how you define the role. But that's
correct.
How the origin was. Now let me ask you: is the classic HR function a thing of the past?
It's a total thing of the past. It's a total thing of the past. And sadly, well, first of all, let me say that during 2020, the year of the worst pandemic since the influenza pandemic of 1918, HR leaders and HR practitioners have done incredible work to keep people sane, safe, healthy, to keep their companies and their organizations operating. So kudos to all of the HR leaders and the HR professionals really trying to do their best in the middle of all this craziness that we have been going through in 2020.
Yes.
Now, now, this is the thing, though. What happens here? Before the pandemic, there were many companies that were told remote work is a trend and you're going to have to get ready for it. Gig workforce distributed workers, that's another trend, and you are going to have to define how you are going to cope and make sense of these trends. For a lot of organizations, including their HR leaders, this was something that was never going to happen to them. Before the pandemic, they said, I'm a bank. Actually, this is a real case. I am a bank. We're never going to be able to send our people to work from home because of the way we operate and our business models. What happened during the pandemic? They had to adapt to a new form of work. So what I'm saying here is that even though we did a great, HR did a great job trying to make sense of all this pandemic craziness, at the same time, it's a call to action for us to not be reactive, but instead make sure that we're understanding all these trends, and somewhere in the back burner start getting ready for some things that we know are going to happen. And let me give you one example of that, Nicolette, which I think it's very tangible. For the past at least 5 years, of course, way more than that, but at least the past 5 years, gurus, Institutes for the Futures, the World Economic Forum, experts, futurists have been telling the workplace, business leaders, and HR, technology will disrupt all of the jobs. Every single job in the world will be disrupted by technology. Millions of jobs will be fully replaced by technology. And several millions more jobs will be created by technology. For a lot of companies, this continues to be something along the lines of, I don't think that's going to happen to us. I'm not sure that our industry will be that impacted. I mean, we're pretty safe here. So the reality is that just like the pandemic, 5 years ago, Bill Gates, President Obama telling people another pandemic will happen within the next 5 or 10 years. Let's look at this trend of technology and think about it in the same terms. Do I want to wait for technology to replace all these jobs? Or do I want to start getting ready by retraining, reskilling, upskilling our workforce, reframing our business models, our working, operating models? I want to start getting ready for that instead of being reactive when that happens. So that's my main thing here. And that goes back to your question. Is the old classic HR dead? It's dead. And whatever it's still alive, we got to kill it, because it is bringing down entire industries and entire organizations.
So where do associations figure into all of this that have been around to do a lot of work in HR? I mean, a lot of them are still focused on traditional HR. Some of them are already kind of focused on forward. Where do you see how the classic or traditional HR associations figure into this? Are they an obstacle, or are they propelling us forward, or is there just a time lag in between?
I think that's a great question, and to me, it goes back to the first part of our conversation. There's an ecosystem of associations, HR groups, HR communities like Hacking HR, HR individuals, technology companies trying to create a better HR. I think everybody should be welcome and embraced in this community. Now, I think there is going to have to be, we're going to have to embrace as HR individuals, practitioners, professionals, leaders, we're going to have to become better at critical thinking. And what I mean by that is to putting on the table all of the protagonists of this ecosystem and saying, this group is not providing the value that I need right now. I mean, if I want to look for the HR group that gives me the best employment laws, well, you know who you're gonna go to. But if you want to think about the more progressive, the more forward-thinking, the more futuristic kind of HR, maybe those groups are not the ones that you're looking for. Maybe you need something different. There's another side of that coin, of course, which is the side of the largest and more traditional associations that have been around for many, many years, that have a lot of resources to do better. I think this should be a call to action for them, to stop thinking about the past of HR and to start thinking about the future of HR. I know they are heavy. they are dealing with this inertia that has kept them going in the same direction for a long period of time. But they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility with people, with HR professionals, with HR leaders, with organizations. They have a responsibility to tell them the old kind of HR is dead. We need to pass the page and get into the next thing. Them taking that role of saying what we did in the past brought us to the place where we are today, but it's not enough to move us forward. So we got to start thinking differently. And I am hoping and I encourage them to take responsibility. In the meantime, groups and communities like ours, like Hacking HR, we're going to continue pushing the envelope and providing an alternative to these more traditional HR groups. And I hope that we continue to bring forward-thinking, progressive HR practitioners, leaders, professionals
together
that want to think of the HR of the future and not the HR of the past.
That's pretty heavy tobacco for some of the larger associations to swallow, and also for a lot of HR people to get to that message. What do you see? It's at the end of 2020. What do you see as some of the key trends for 2021 in that space, in terms of how organizations need to develop? I know we talked already a little bit about upskilling, in terms of, and also in terms of what's important for people, for employees to look out for.
Number one, I don't really think, Nicolette, that we have even seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the mental health implications of all that's happened in 2020.
Yep.
I think we have not even seen this tiny bit of the mental health implications. I think one of the biggest challenges for society, not just for HR, but for society, for the government, for our institutions, for HR, for us as family members, as friends, we are going to have to deal with the incredible challenges that will be brought to us by the mental health consequences of an entire year of pandemic, at least here in the United States, political nastiness, and all this kind of thing. So we're going to be dealing with that going forward.
And we actually had several shows on that topic.
And it's going to become way more important than it ever was in the past. It was important before, but now it's going to be even more important than it ever was. So number one, mental health implications of all that we've gone through in 2020. Number two, even though a lot of organizations send their people to work remotely, the reality is that the remote work approach does not work for everybody. The same way that the in-person work approach does not work for everybody. The big challenge in terms of organizational and work frameworks will be for HR and for business leaders to determine what are the flexible approaches that they want to implement in their organization. Well, you know what? Enrique likes to work from home because Enrique loves it in Flagstaff and he doesn't want to come back to Washington, D.C. So Enrique can work from home. Nicolette, on the other hand, she loves to come to the studio because she has all this fancy stuff in the studio and she wants to work from the office. Can we provide a safe, healthy, meaningful, and effective workplace that allows Nicolette to come to the office and work from the office, and that allows Enrique to work from home, and they both are doing effective work? But listen to this. The implications of that are critical, because I don't want down the road to say, you know what, I'm going to give Nicolette a higher performance rating because she was in the office, and I'm going to give Enrique a lower performance rating because he was working from home. Because when I saw Nicolette in the office, my thinking was, she's working. But because I couldn't see Enrique every day, I don't know if Enrique's actually working.
That's definitely an issue,
It is definitely, of course, that's been happening this year, right? So we are going to have to recreate and reimagine entire working frameworks around flexibility. Who wants to come to the office safe and healthy? Who wants to work from home with clear goals and objectives while working from home? So that is a second trend. A third trend, which I don't even have the response to that, next year financially and economically will be very hard. Very hard. I think the Fed already said that they estimate that by the end of 2021, unemployment will be up to 10%. So meaning that we're going to see a lot of fluctuation in the job marketplace next year. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people will be struggling financially. And I think not only governments, but the private sector has a gigantic responsibility about when it comes to thinking of their employees. How can we provide opportunities? How can we ensure that the suffering is minimized as much as possible for the people that are working for us? And I think HR has a lot to say in that sense. So that is a third trend. And perhaps the last one in this, 3 or 4 trends that I'm sharing is technology. Technology will continue to be a powerful trend. Let me give you one example of that. There are companies that found out this year that they don't need the humans to do some kind of work that they were doing before. The humans left to go work from home. These companies invested in technology, and they found, you know what? Technology is still a little clunky. It need to get better, but it's doing the work. Yep. So maybe we don't need all these humans to work for us. And that, of course, will feed back into the mental health thing that I talked about before, the financial implications that I talked about before. But the reality is that this is not something new, and we need to be more proactive about it. And what that means is that we are going to have to reskill, upskill our workforce, yes, create new opportunities, and help them if the only way for them is to transition out of the company. Yep. Help them in whatever ways we can, yep, either by finding new jobs or by reskilling them for the jobs that they need to find going forward. So I think,
Enrique, we're almost out of time. Any last word you want to share with us and with our audience about the future of HR? I know you also have a website, which we're going to show, where organizations and people can get more information, I believe, about what Hacking HR offers, right? So we will show that. And what's any last word for us going into 2021?
I think this last thought goes well beyond HR, and is this idea of coming together in communities. This is something that I've been talking about ever since I created Hacking HR 3 years ago. We are going to need from each other way more than we ever needed from each other before.
Great.
We are going to have to come together in communities. We're going to have to collaborate more. We're going to have to learn more from each other. We're going to have to support and challenge each other way more.
Thank you so much, Enrique Rubio, for joining us today via Skype and for this informative interview.